Yeah, Wayne, was wondering what happened to you.
I was cleaning my screen and I accidentally hung up.
All right.
Anyway, happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. Give us some good news from Israel.
Everything is beautiful here. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. Our enemies are scared of us. It's great.
At least in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just watching this video yesterday of this. Do you see this one about the woman whose children begged her to turn off the lights of the menorah in Sydney?
Really?
Yes, Chabad. Do you see it? No. It's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. It's like this Chabad mom, and she has her menorah lit the whole year, and her and they got home after the shooting. They were all okay, but her kids begged her, please turn off the lights. And she said, we don't do that. We don't turn off the lights. We know we don't retreat. We're proud to be Jews. And the kids just kept crying and crying until they finally had to turn off the lights.
That's so
Heartbreaking.
sad. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Uh, so we were learning yesterday what solidifies a partnership. Like under what conditions can a person back out from a partnership? And um, actually, we're beyond partnerships now. We're talking about transactions. So what we learned yesterday about transactions is that midioraisa, ma'os konos, that from the Torah, once you outlay the cash and give it to the seller, that consummates the deal. But the Chachamim said, stop. No, it doesn't. You have to wait until you take possession of the goods. And we learned the reason behind that. And we also learned that there's an exception to the rule. And the exception is that when you're making a purchase for a mitzvah, then even the outlay of cash it consummates the deal. There, the Chachamim did not insert themselves. And remember the reason why?
The consumer needs those items. Meat and wine, is that what we said? I just listened to it.
Oh, that's something. Yeah, so the case of the Mechaber was that the rabbis instituted certain days out of the year that when you go to the butcher, once you outlay the cash, neither party can back down.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason given is because we're concerned that the butcher's not going to want to slaughter the meat. Um, if because he may say, all right, I'll take your money, but come back in a couple of hours, and then it's going to be Erev Yantif, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And there's not going to be, the guys could say to the consumer, I didn't get enough people to justify my slaughtering of a new cow. Here's your money back. No, now I'm stuck. I have no meat for Yantif.
This is before refrigeration and things like that.
Right.
Injected and put it away for
Right.
futures.
Yeah. So, but see, it's even, you could argue that it's even after refrigeration. If a person has a time sensitive mitzvah, this is where the Ramah came in. And the Ramah said, according to some opinions, any time sensitive mitzvah, like I'm doing a bris and I make a down payment for the caterer to come deliver the food, the breakfast in the morning. And he says, sorry, it wasn't convenient for me. I had a sick child at home and I couldn't get to it.
The wedding.
Yeah, wedding, even worse, right? So those cases where a seller could take unfair advantage and say, look, here's your deposit back, sorry, that there we don't have the same suspension of the kinyan. So, okay, fine. Next, she'ela. Mi shenatan ma'os l'mocher kedei liknos es hachefetz v'lo higbi es hachefetz olo asa echad mishar darchei hakinyan. Someone puts down money to purchase an object. Okay, he paid the money to the seller and then did not make a kinyan. So technically, like we said, either party can back out. Ha'im nikna lo hachefetz af shelo asa kinyan b'chefetz. Do we say that he's now the owner of the object, even though he didn't yet make a kinyan? O shema kol zman shelo higbia o mashach es hachefetz, or do we say that so long as he has not physically lifted up or drawn the object towards him, af shenasan hakona ma'os l'mocher bar hachefetz, even though he's already paid money for it, lo nikna lo v'yicholim lachzer b'hem me'amechach ben hakona ben hamocher, and then we can allow. We say that the sale is not final, has not been finalized, and therefore either party can back out. Do we say that even though I've already paid the money, the seller or the buyer can back out of the deal? And so let's see. Remember, it should make sense that we should say that either party should back out. So, but does that mean you can back out with impunity? Okay, so the tshuva is mishanas sam kesef lamocher kedeg niknos chayfetz mesuyam. Ein hachefetz nikna lo elim kein hakona higbia umashach es hachefetz. So the answer is no. You haven't. If you haven't, you have not acquired. You as the buyer have not acquired the object until you actually pick it up. B'keven shehachefetz lo nikna lakona yicholim lachzer b'hem ben hakona ben hamocher, and therefore either party has the halachic ability to back out of the deal. However, with that said, kol hachozer bo hareza lo amad b'diburo. Anyone who does back out is a person who has failed to act in good faith, has not fulfilled his word. The alzeh omer hakasav, and about such a person, Scripture says, she'erit Yisrael lo yasu avla v'lo yedabru chazav v'lo yimatzei b'fihem lashon tarmit, that the remnant of Israel, meaning the Jews around the world, may not act perversely, nor may they speak falsely, and there may not be found among them any deceitful language. Okay? Now that's a blanket statement. It's in the Navi. So it's not really a halachic statement. It's just a depiction of the character of the Jewish people. But it means something far deeper according to Chazal. It means that once you agree you're going to do something, especially involving trade, you have an obligation to follow through with that. If you don't follow through, you're not in violation of the technical aspects of the halachic system. However, you have acted treacherously. You violated the principle of what it means to be a Jew. Okay, I guess that's one way of saying what this pasuk, because we don't derive halacha from the Navi, but we do derive the characterization of what it means to be a Jew from the Navi. Okay, v'nimtza shelo asa ma'aseh Yisrael, and it turns out that he did not behave as a Jew by backing out on his word. V'lachein hachozer bo mekalelin oso bevestin, and therefore anyone who retracts after having either paid or received the cash, and then says, well, I'm going to exercise my legal right to back out of the deal since the buyer did not technically take possession of the purchase, I'm going to exercise that halachic right. We curse him in Beis Din. In other words, let's say I'm the buyer and you as the seller decide you're not going to sell me the object. I can't demand that you go through with the purchase, but I can take you to Beis Din, and Beis Din will throw the book at you verbally, even though they're not going to be able to take any action against you. I don't know if there's such a concept in secular law, like we're going to publicly humiliate you because you've done something naughty.
I guess if someone's found in contempt of court in the face of the court, there's an order that's there and then it becomes public, but there isn't sort of any public shame.
Yeah, because there is no public shame anymore.
Right.
People are not ashamed at all. Yeah.
They're proud of it. They probably
Yeah, they probably will say, yeah, look what I got away with. Okay.
So publicly, you can give Choshen Hora or don't do business. You know, lucky for nothing wrong, but in the spirit of the law, he didn't
This is a man who acts in bad faith. He was when was within his halachic right. You know, there aren't too many times when you have this gray area where you're still within your legal rights, but you've behaved unethically. Okay? So what we basically say is you're a bad guy. You're not a decent fellow, you're not honest, and you deserve to be called out publicly. Because we want to make an example of him. And we also want to disincentivize people from doing such things.
In your situation, you said a while ago, like, can you say publicly, or can you, people ask you the question, should I deal with that person?
Yeah, you can even say publicly. You can post on social media. Just went to Basin with my former friend Yankel. And Yankel was just cursed in front of Basin and all of the spectators because I relied on him for this, extraordinary financial opportunity.
Should you warn the person for the publicly, give him a second chance, or you just?
Well, yeah, that's why you're taking him to Basin. Basin is going to say, listen, you have two choices. You can either exercise your halachic right, or we're going to publicly curse you. Choose.
It's a Basin decision, not the person.
Yeah, it's the Basin. But once the Basin has done it, I can post it on social media. I can even take a video of it. The Basin cursing him.
Yes, in secular law, you could have a similar thing where if you had a trial and somebody testified he was found to be not credible and a liar, and the court wrote the judgment and said, I'm finding for the other side, I find this guy's evidence is totally unbelievable, he's not credible, he's a liar. I find him as a liar, which does happen.
Right, but there's legal ramifications there.
Well, it could be if he lies in court, that's perjury. But let's say he doesn't, he's not found to be a liar, he's found to be not credible, his wild story, whatever. It's not as severe, but his reputation. And I've seen cases where someone afterwards the decision gets published and then it goes around like wildfire, social media or whatever. This guy has been found to be not credible. That does have impact on him in business or in law or something. I've seen lawyers being found to
really
credible. Yeah.
Wow.
And they testify about whatever. So maybe that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Where the court finds against him on credibility. With that.
But again, the court is finding against him. In this situation, the court will actually side with him that he's within his rights to cancel the deal.
Or it could not be a party, it could be a witness. So a witness has no skin in the game. Now.
Okay.
Somebody is
Right.
found to, be a liar, So
Right.
that might be bad.
Yeah.
No, in a different realm, but wouldn't it be the same sort of idea with a man who's going to give a get? We shame them and in the same sort of way, right?
I just met with a guy last night who's a lovely guy, but he hasn't given his wife a get in over a year. And he claims that he wants to wait for this, for that. And I said, it's not worth it. Your reputation is going to be marred because your wife is claiming that she's an aguna. So why would you do that? Like, I said, it doesn't make any sense. Like, what do you gain? You gain nothing, because if she's taking you to court, the court proceedings are going to play themselves out. And the court will obligate you to give a get no matter what, because we have a get law in Ontario, right? But you're right. I use that argument, in situations like this. Okay. So the Omrim Lo, and we therefore say to him publicly in Beis Din, Mi shapara me anshe dor hamabul, ume anshe dor haflaga, ume anshe stom va'amora, ume mitzrayim shetavu bayam. We say to him, he who exacted vengeance from the people of the generation of the flood, and from the generation of the Tower of Babel, and from the people of Sodom, and from the Egyptians who drowned in the ocean, hu yifra mimi she'ena omid b'diburo. He will also exact vengeance from someone who doesn't keep their word. That's the exact language that you will find in the Gemara, and which is pretty scary stuff. You don't want to be that guy. So the Basin obviously will have to take into consideration what are the mitigating circumstances? Many times circumstances change. So for example, the buyer comes in, he puts down money on a purchase, has not taken legal acquisition of it, and then all overnight, the price of this commodity shoots up tenfold. Okay? So in that kind of situation, the Beis Din will be more sympathetic to the seller. And quite often, based on the Beis Din's assessment, a seller would not incur this kind of curse for going back on his commitment simply because the circumstances changed. And I'm hopeful that he'll point this out in the ensuing pages, that there are certain times when either a buyer or a seller can legally, because they can legally back out, they're not doing anything unethical by backing out, simply because the market has so dramatically changed. Or in the case of the buyer, where the market drops so precipitously that he's put down money and committed to a certain price, and now the object is worth a fraction of what it was. Okay. Okay. So let us continue, because this is pretty straightforward, a forward sugya. Now he does give a couple of different what ifs as far as, does this constitute a kinyan? And so in the notes he says it as follows: Shtias mashke o amiras l'chaim lo havi kinyan. What if we make a l'chaim over the purchase? Yeah, is that considered a consummation of the deal? Like in certain industries, a handshake consummates the deal. So he says, "Va'od ayin l'marna shulchan aruch shekosav, v'chein kol davar shenagu hatagorim liknos bo." He says anything that is considered to be a finalization of the deal by the merchants, kagon al yedei shenosein halokeach pruta l'mocher, either giving a small down payment to the seller, or al yedei shetokea kapo l'mocher, or by handshaking, v'chein kol kayotze bazeh, yesh kan kinyan gamur, ve'ein echad mehem yochol lachzer bahem, v'havi kinyan mitzad haminag v'hachozer bo mekabel mishupara. So he says all of these are considered to be a finalization of the sale, and neither party is allowed to back out unless they're willing to accept the curse. Meaning that this, yes, technically the sale has not been consummated until the buyer takes possession. But once you do any of these things to express that we're finalizing the deal before the finalization, meaning that we're committing ourselves to it, then any act which is considered to be conventional, whether it's you putting down a token amount of money, put down a deposit, or whether we shake hands, or any other act, that's considered to be, at that point, you can't go back unless you're willing to accept the curse. Ba'ayin bisma shekosav, the tekiyas kaf kan eina begeder shvua ela hakavana lekinyan. So he says that a handshake, it's not that you're making an oath that you're going to buy, but rather is that you're committed to that transaction. Because if it was considered to be a vow, then it wouldn't depend upon the convention of that industry, but rather it's a sign that you're committed. Lo mikri kinyan. He says making a l'chaim over the transaction is not considered to be a kinyan, and it's therefore doesn't have the same strength as, let's say, a deposit or a handshake. Okay. Now we should okay. So just to go back one paragraph, he says, he quotes the Torah, and in the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber Paskins, Kevin Shemasha Hamakna Hakli Nikna Hakarka O Hametaltal Lokeach O Lamakabel Matana B'chol Makom Shehu. Once the purchaser, or once the seller, I should say, Kivin Shin Moshach Hamikna Hamakna Hakli Echol Makabel Matan B'chol Makom Shehu Afal Pishlo Hechzik V'lo Nasan Kesev V'lo Kasev Shtar V'lo Moshach. There are times when even the seller can make a kinyan on behalf of the buyer. If the seller makes a kinyan in front of others on behalf of the buyer, then that could also constitute a binding sale. And as long as the two of them admit that that was done, then even if there are no witnesses, it can be legally binding. Okay, so then he writes that whatever is convention is considered to be binding, and therefore, if you back out, you accept the curse in based in. Okay, and then kinyan berishima utekiyas kaf. What about a kinyan that is done through just writing it down, or with a handshake? Now, imlo nasan hakona kesef limkor ba'ad kiniyas hachefetz, elarak rosham hamekach b'fnei hamocher, kedei sheyeh siman yadua shehu shalo. What if the buyer doesn't take possession and doesn't pay any money down, but rather he just writes a note to the seller that I'm purchasing this commodity? Oshanasan tikiyas kaf sheyikna, or he shakes a hand and says, I'm going to buy this. Im echad mehem chozer v'hamekach shenase b'neihem mekabel mishapara. So if either one of them backs out, so then he has to accept the curse upon himself. V'im minhag hamadina hu sheyikna haroshim kinyan gomer nikna hamekach ve'ein echad mehem yachol lachzer bo v'chol zeh kisharashim ifnei hamocher o shamar lo hamocher rashum mekachecha. However, there are times when even just writing it down consummates the sale entirely. So if you write it down and you do it so and you present it to the seller and you say, you both agree that with this piece of paper, I am now the owner of the commodity, then neither party can back out, even if they're willing to accept the curse. Okay. Okay. So
What did the boy do? I'm curious, after meeting last night.
he gave me a deadline by when he's going to give the get. He said within 3 weeks, I'll know, So
I will know or I'll do.
he said he will act.
Yeah.
He will act. He was hiding behind a certain other rabbi in the community, and I said, I'm going to go over to that fellow and we'll have a nice talk. Go over to the rabbi and I'll try to get clarity from him.
These usually financially motivated situations.
It's not so clear cut. Usually divorces involve acrimony, bad feelings. And so one of the skills that you develop over time, whether you're a lawyer or a mediator or a rabbi, is that you try to comb out what the words from the substance, the reality, okay? Sometimes a person will claim that it's financial, but you also can appreciate that there are bad feelings as well involved. And a lot of times, if you think about it rationally, the financial argument doesn't make sense, or at least it doesn't seem reasonable, no matter how convincing they may sound. And then that's part of the effort, is to try, when you're trying to move things along in people's lives and try to get the get to be given, you have to know, it's like in any negotiation, you have to try and figure out, how do we present to people that what they're doing is not even in their own best interests? I said to the guy, there's only one instance that where I can see that withholding the get is justified. If the woman is weaponizing the court system by lying to the court and saying that you're an adulterer, an abuser, a molester, or something like that. If the woman is willing to lie to try and get you into trouble and to have your reputation smeared
Extort money.
or extort money, and she's lying in order to extort money, then I could certainly understand you withholding the get and saying, let's wait until the financials are all settled. But it has to rise to a certain level of deviousness. If she simply wants to get more alimony, and like the two of you are at two different figures, right? Because she's basing her request on certain things she knows about your financial past, and she doesn't realize that that financial past is not your financial present. So then you got to negotiate, and you'll figure it out in the courts. But since they're both acting in good faith, it's just that she wants more and you want to give less. That's not a reason to withhold the get, right? You understand?
People use it though.
But it's not really a reason
I
because
agree.
at the end of the day, it's not going to change the outcome. Withholding the get is not going to change the outcome. You just want to use it as a levering chip to intimidate her, to basically imply to her, hey, you better not be asking too much, otherwise I'm not going to give you the get. That's not right. She's entitled to the get, regardless of what financial settlement you arrive at. You agree?
Yeah, it's also in her interest, in his interest to give it so she can get married, remarried faster. Less alimony or child support or whatever, right?
Right. Well, that's true also. Although
But
A
not
lot.
child support, Alan.
Yeah, whatever it is, money. But yeah, not always also. She won't.
Okay. We shouldn't know of such things, but unfortunately, it's a reality in so many families, right? You know. Okay. Kinyan b'devarim. She'ela kishahakona v'hamocher nasu v'nasnu b'dvarim bilvad. Okay. Another case of where the buyer and seller have only been engaged in verbal negotiation. And they arrive at a price, they arrive at terms, and they're ready to move forward. They agree that the sale is going to take place. They've agreed on a price. So is either party allowed to back out at this point with impunity? In other words, at what point do you say you get the curse? At what point do we say you get the curse? Is it just when you say, okay, we've got terms, let's finalize this tomorrow? Is that at that point, if you decide to back out, do you get a curse? Or what's the trigger point where you receive the curse? So we'll finish this. We'll look at the answer, Mirza Shem, tomorrow. Happy Hanukkah, everyone.